I was reading through some of my Instagram comments last night, and I was astounded, is a good word, by how the general public, maybe not all just general public, even some fosters, rescues, maybe even some shelter people, but not so much. This account is more directed at shelter and rescue people. So is my Instagram account. So for some of the comments that I had, it was pretty wild. There is a disconnect between people understanding what managed intake, which is no kill, and open intake, which is a kill shelter, actually is. People don't understand the difference. So I thought to myself, I'm gonna go look and see what AI says about it. So I'm just gonna read to you what AI says, because it's very interesting. The first response I got with my first prompt, which was very generic, basically an open intake or open admission shelter is usually a municipal shelter or nonprofit operating under a government contract. It is expected, legally or contractually required to accept animals from a defined service area. That's directly from Shelter Animals Count, which is part of the ASPCA, okay? That means shelters may be responsible for stray, owner surrenders, cruelty, neglect, bite, quarantine, sick, injured, elderly, neonatal, behaviorally difficult, or otherwise hard animals. Animals no rescues want to touch. Plain English version, open intake shelter is the community's emergency room. Okay, I'm okay with that. Then we go to managed intake. And this came straight, ChatGPT pulled this right from Best Friends. Not a fan of Best Friends or the ASPCA, as we are aware. Managed intake is not necessarily a different kind of shelter. It is usually a process a shelter uses to regulate non-emergency admissions. Oh, I call bullshit. That came right from Best Friends. Best Friends describes managed intake as triaging animals needed immediate or urgent help for shelter admission while offering other options first for healthy animals. It can include scheduled owner surrenders, rehoming support, finder to foster programs, field return to home efforts, and community cat diversion or TNVR. That's right from Best Friends. That's where ChatGPT pulled the definition of managed intake. ASPCA, another stellar organization, frames managed admission around controlling how and when animals are accepted, noting that managing surrender hours can improve animal flow, reduce intake, and improve service to people and animals. Bullshit. Okay, so when I went back into ChatGPT and I said, okay, let's take out the happy joy about managed intake from Best Friends and ASPCA Pro and give me the truth, it gave me a completely different explanation of both. So let's just talk about both for a second. First of all, the fact that ChatGPT, I understand they pull from the internet, but that just goes right there to show you how deeply entrenched Best Friends and ASPCA are in what information the public gets. And that is designed to be that way. No kill, managed intake is supposed to make everybody feel good and think that there is no animal crisis out there, which, honey, I'm telling you there is. There is a nonstop flow into the open intake, which I refuse to call them kill shelters anymore. That is what they are notoriously known as, and they are open intake. They are taking every single thing. So I'm not going to call them kill shelters anymore. We're going to call them open intake. And we're not going to call managed intake shelters no kill because it's bullshit. It's a misnomer. It's not true. If you are managing what you're taking in, of course you can manipulate the 90% no kill number. I've said it a million times. And I've been attacked for it. So I don't really care. The difference is, simply put, a managed intake shelter, they're probably run by a nonprofit, or they're very heavily rescue involved. They can take in what they want. They can take in the cute fluffy puppies. They can bring in puppies from somewhere else and not in their community. They can bring in animals from wherever they want and adopt them out. And then their adoption rates are high, their kill rates are low. A open intake shelter is often, as this was correct about that, it is often a municipal shelter or a nonprofit with government contracts. they have to take whatever comes in. Sick, injured, aggressive, all of those things. And the no-kill, the people screaming no-kill, okay, if you're a no-kill advocate, managed intake advocate, and your municipal shelter down the street is getting an aggressive, we'll just say German Shepherd Akita, which is what we got this week. Do you want me to try to rehabilitate that dog and put it back out on the street? It attacked a child and the child had to be airlifted to a trauma center. Do you really want me to try to rehabilitate that dog and adopt it out? No, you don't. You want me to kill that dog. Or warehouse that dog and let it sit in the shelter forever, which is a safety hazard for everyone and cruel to the animal. A human failed that animal. But let's let it suffer because we want to reach an imaginary number. That is the premise of managed intake and the no-kill Best Friends ASPCA message. I'm trying to figure out what to call it. So when we're looking at, and I got pretty hard attacked yesterday on a couple of comments and DMs about my statement that you should not say I only support no-kill shelters. You should be supporting those shelters that have to take in everything. They're the ones who need the support more. I got attacked pretty hard on some of those in the comments, and I got some pretty nasty DMs about how I support murdering animals and blah, blah, blah. No, actually, I don't support murdering animals. Everybody in the world would love it if we lived in an environment, in a society where animals were important to people. But unfortunately, where we live right now, in the situation that we're in right now, is such that people are dumping animals at a rapid rate. And if they don't have a place to dump them, a shelter to go to, your managed intake shelter is full, you're not going to take that. Or we're just not taking that dog because it's a pit bull and we know that we're not going to be able to adopt it out in 10 seconds. So we go down the street to the county shelter. If that county shelter's not there or that city shelter's not there to take that dog, what do you think happens to it? They give it away on Facebook? They lie about its temperament? Is that good? Probably not. Or they take it out here. We have County Line Road and we have Cow Creek Road. They take them out to one of those roads and they dump them. And then animal control ends up picking them up and bringing them in anyway. Do we not understand that? Do we not get that? Apparently not. Because judging from some of the comments that I get whenever I say we need to support our open intake shelters, I'm a puppy killer. It's really pretty wild. I'd love to show you some of them, but I also heard one yesterday that really blew my mind. And this is from someone who fosters for a rescue. They've probably never stepped past the lobby of the shelter, I'm guessing, or they wouldn't have made this comment. A shelter is a property and buildings. It is not, I'm sorry, but I would call bullshit on that one. A shelter is the sum total of the employees, the management staff, the veterinarians, how you treat your animals. There are bad shelters. Yes, there are bad shelters. But a shelter is not a building and a property. It is a living, breathing thing. And I've had the question asked of me, what are you? What kind of shelter are you? Because people say, I yell all the time defending open intake shelters, but what are you? We're a hybrid. We are a city in a city building. We are a city open intake shelter. We are run by a nonprofit, but we are open intake for the city that we are in and 2 other cities, local cities in our community. We are managed intake for our county and for 3 other cities. So if we have room, we can take their dogs from animal control and their owner surrenders from their city. From our city that we're in and 2 neighboring cities, we are open intake. We take everything. So we're both. So unfortunately, I understand both sides of the struggle on both sides. I have to make sure we leave enough kennels open for those open intake people and yet be able to help the people in the community from the other cities in the county. So it's a balancing act. What I don't like to see is and there's harassment, but the vilification of the open intake shelters, the harassment of employees who are sharing animals, sharing this deadline is such and such a date for this dog, and they're getting attacked in the comments when all they're trying to do is help and they work there. Nobody wants to kill an animal. They are there because they care. And the burnout rate is off the chain right now. Even in our shelter, burnout is a thing. So I guess my point is, I guess I don't have a point other than when you are looking at who you want to support, and there's a shelter here that used to be open intake, and now they've gone to the best friends model. They are managed intake. They're also bringing in dogs from out of area that are cute and fluffy to adopt out to get their adoption rate up. And they have millions and millions of dollars in the bank. And they do same-day fee waived adoptions to move the dogs. That's the topic for another time. I also think it's worthwhile to note that managed intake can be done well in some cases. If you have your shelter or a portion of your shelter is managed intake, you can do a good job of helping people. If someone comes into your shelter and they need to surrender their dog, or they call and they need to surrender their dog, and they're clearly in distress for some reason, ask why. You can say and everyone should be doing this, open intake and managed intake. But what's the issue? Is it, if it's housing, we have a problem. And about 80% of ours is housing right now. If it's food, I can't afford to take care of my pet. I got a rabies warning and I have to get a rabies shot. I need food. I can't afford to feed my dog. Do you have a pet food pantry at your managed intake shelter that will feed those people? Can you give them a rabies shot at a discounted or free to help them keep their pet? It's a lot cheaper to spend the $4 or $5 it costs you to give a rabies shot than it is to take care of a dog in your shelter. So I think managed intake can be done well, but it has to be done thoughtfully. It can't just be, I'm not taking that dog because I don't want that breed, I don't want that. There has to be some conversation with the person who needs to surrender the dog. There also, when a stray dog is found and it gets brought in, we're posting the dog's here, people don't come for the dog. The only thing we put on our found dog posts are proof of ownership is required, because obviously proof of ownership needs to be required. But fees get people, and they say, I can afford to pay the fee to get the dog back. If you've lost your dog one time, your dog got out of the fence, or a worker left your fence open and your dog is loose and it gets brought in, and it's not in there all the time because you're irresponsible, then we're going to give you your dog back. We don't want your dog. We're in a situation now where we can't keep your dog. But if you're somebody who your dog's running loose all the time, it's harassing the neighborhood, you're going to pay a fee to get your dog back. If your dog's not spayed and neutered, you're going to pay a fee to get your dog back. We need to encourage responsible pet ownership, but we also need to be cognizant of the fact that countrywide we're in a crisis of economics, home ownership, where people live, do they allow pets? There's a lot of different factors that need to be considered when we are taking in animals, dogs, cats, rabbits. We took rabbits this week. So there's a lot of, instead of screaming and yelling, I think there needs to be more thought put into how we are operating both open intake and managed intake shelters.